TruthSeekah and or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah Podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark savage!
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff!
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the TruthSeekah Podcast. I'm your host, TruthSeekah, excited and delighted to be with you guys today. We got an awesome show lined up for you guys, a great discussion. We always talk about all things spiritual, and we leave no stone unturned. We're going to be talking about the spiritual connection and the power that we have with plants. It's going to be good. We've talked to some different experts in this field, and I love picking people's mind about their encounters and interactions, about consciousness and how we're all connected to one another and with the plant kingdom as well. It's going to be a good one. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody supporting my work via Patreon. This podcast is not possible without your works, without your help. So thank you guys for believing in my work and partnering with me via Patreon. If you'd like to support, head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. There you get access to my entire discography of music. You get access to our Thursday night School of the Mystics, which is like the community aspect to what we're building here, and my meditations and all bunch of other really cool behind the scenes stuff. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Check it out. Also, my new book is out. Spirit Realm, Angels, Demons, Spirits, and the Sovereignty of God. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, it is available on Amazon.com. Check that out as well. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump into today's conversation. Bring on my guest, Cathy Skipper. Cathy, how are you, my friend?
I'm fine, thanks. Great to be here.
Oh, man. Excited to talk to you. This is... I've seen your listing and seeing what you bring to the table, some of the amazing courses and things like that. Bunch of really cool stuff, returning to nature, if you will. One of them really caught my attention was this communicating with plants and this intuitive connection that we have. And I think a lot of people are returning back to this ancient path. So I'm ready to dive into this discussion with you and hear some of your experiences, and you teach people how to do that, correct?
Yeah, that's true. I have a school called AromaGnosis where we teach everything to do with plants and aromatics, because aromatics are like the soul of the plant. And they enter us straight into the limbic brain. They don't get filtered through the thalamus. So I use a lot of aroma to journey with plants, and also plants in nature. I take people into nature and teach them how to communicate with the natural world.
Beautiful. I'm ready to explore this and hear some of this beautiful stuff. Some of it very, I would say, esoteric. All of us know about plants smell good and make you feel good when you see colors and things like that. But then some of the esoteric, really inner workings of that kingdom and these plants are alive. And I want to get your take on that. I guess before we go any further, just kind of give people just a brief bio about who you are and what you bring to the table. We'll get started there.
Okay, so I'm an aromatherapist and a herbalist. I trained in France, and I worked in a huge herbal school in France, the biggest herbal school in Europe. And then in 2014, I spoke at a conference in Seattle on aromatherapy, and I met my husband, who's a holistic psychiatrist. And we joined together, not just as man and wife, but we joined together in our work, and we developed the school that I mentioned called AromaGnosis, where we really, you say it's esoteric, but for me, it's normal. It's, we call these things esoteric, but they're not esoteric. They're our normal human nature. It's what we've always known. We've just become disconnected. Yes. Like we've become disconnected to many things. But the most important thing that we're seeing today in the problems in the world is that we've become disconnected from our roots, which is our place in nature. So for me, it's not esoteric. It's actually incredibly scientific and normal.
Yeah, and maybe that's me tying a bunch of other research and esoteric things in my mind, connecting these dots that are there from listening to other people, researchers, and who have a deep appreciation for plant medicines, if you will, and that the plants are alive and they have a consciousness and things like that. And it seems far out, but I'm with you that this was something that was understood by our ancestors and, by the indigenous people. Do you think that this kind of information was widespread, or was it just for the shamans and for the healers, or was it just kind of something that everybody knew as far as our ancestors are concerned?
I think everybody had a much deeper connection. And I believe I teach a lot about ancestral medicine and plants. And I believe that everybody is indigenous to somewhere. So in all our ancestral lines, depending on what your ancestral story is, it's further or nearer back. But every line goes back at some point to indigenous people who were close to the land, who lived in harmony with the land, but needed the land and nature in order to survive, all of us, every single one of us. And it's at that point where this ancestral knowledge is our knowledge. We've cut ourselves off from nature, we've cut ourselves off from our ancestral energy. The energy that supports us is actually ancestral. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those indigenous people in all our lives and with that knowledge. So part of reconnecting with nature is reconnecting with what is in our bloodline. We already know it. In fact, we're re-remembering. It's not about learning again how to communicate with plants, how to be in connection with nature. It's just re-remembering what we already know.
Do you think that there's a resurgence in it now? Like, have you seen that with like the popularity of your work, or, emails in the inbox and things like that? People who were actually hungry for this now. I've seen like it's just like it's almost like people have this inner sense that I need to return to nature. I need to put my feet on the ground. I'm so just drenched in my work and the computer and the concrete, and I'm not, you know what I'm saying? And there's this disconnect there. Do you think it's growing in popularity now? People are returning back to the ancient ways?
Definitely. And I think for many reasons, one of them, as you said, that people feel disconnected. So there's a natural, what do I need to do to get back? But I also think because people are aware of the state of the earth, the ecology, what's happening in the earth, it's like a counter force. We're destroying the earth, and huge companies and organizations on the earth who don't actually give a shit because they're interested only in money and power. And so there's a counter force to that. And consciousness is saying, but hang on, there's something else. But also, I think the ancestors, these indigenous people in all of our lines are calling out. There's this hum behind in our consciousness of something more, something that we know we've lost. So we're being called back through that line as well.
I agree. I felt, we had this whole spiritual awakening, if you will, some years ago, around 2012, just getting deeper and deeper. For me, it was something that, I was doing my research into a lot of different things, but then I went to the Native American powwow, which we used to live on the reservation. I'm Native American as well. And it was just something was different that year. There was a spirit in the air. The weather was just right. There was a connectedness to the people. There was energy and transference when I would shake someone's hand. I was in tears the majority of the time and trying to hold them back, because it was like this lost practice of these people who were definitely connected to the seasons and to the cycles and to the earth and to the nature spirits and the ancestor spirits, and who worked with them. And now, like for us Westerners now, it's only like privy to one day a year, but I was able to experience it and my eyes were open, and it was something that I carry with me today. But I do feel like it was some type of ancestral call where the ancestors are letting us know, like, hey, we have to return back.
Definitely. I mean, it's the ancestral connection actually, I believe, saved my life, because if we're not conscious of it, we live out the traumas of our ancestors rather than working with our healthy indigenous people who have that wisdom. Otherwise we just have our traumatized ancestors sitting on our knee, and neither they or us can heal. We need to connect with nature and with our healthy ancestors, because they are the ones that can heal the traumas that have gone before us, that have disconnected us from nature, disconnected us from ourselves, and allowed the state of the earth as it is today and the people who are leading that to take over. And it's the healthy ancestors that are the other side of the veil that actually need us to behold them, to listen to them, to be guided by them, and they can heal the harms that have gone before. And I also think, reconnecting with our ancestors and reconnecting with nature is the same thing. And what it gives us is what we've lost, which is the sense of belonging. We don't belong to the Christian, Catholic, or whatever church is. We don't belong to the industrialized world. We don't belong to the money system. We belong to something much deeper that is connected, like you said, to the seasons, to the harmony of the world, to nature, and to our own ancestors. And that's, for me, the riding force now on the earth.
There's something you said. You made a distinction between healthy ancestors, and if that's true, then you have to have unhealthy ancestors as well. And maybe you can help me a little bit, because I look back at some of even with the Native American ancestors, and they wasn't like, they were alcoholics, they beat their wives, they were hustlers, they were pimps, they were in the mafia and things like that, so it's like everyone wants to connect with the ancestors and connect with the great grandfather spirits, but my grandfather was like a mobster. He was a bad guy, so how does that work on the other side? Is he still that guy? Has he learned? Is it okay to try to want to, because there's songs and things that embody this kind of stuff, and it's calling out for the grandfather and the grandmother to return and teach us, and I love those songs, but it's like, hold on, I'm reminded of the person that my granddaddy was. How does that fit in with the healthy and unhealthy ancestors to where we are now?
Well, what's great is we have a similar story, because my maternal line is from the Naga people in India. And in colonization, my mother's father line were British, and they married with the tribal people. So my great-great-grandfather married a tribal girl. So I have a very similar story to yours. And I have very unhealthy ancestors, because on the maternal line, the women were really, their blood was stolen, their names were stolen. My grandmother and my great-grandmother were in state orphanages, like what happened here. And they were damaged because they had no sense of self. They gave all away their power to the white man. And on my maternal father's line, the white man was a pretty rough and pretty nasty line of guys. So those people are all damaged. But the healthy ancestors, you have to go back further, because in any story all over the world, the ancestors that died recently, the ones we can name, they still have stories and wounds and traumas to heal. And what would have happened, because every single society, civilization in the world, the base of all religion is actually ancestral veneration of some form, ancestral connection. So when we were still venerating the ancestors in a healthy way in every society, this work would have been done naturally because the culture honored the fact that the ancestors existed and this work was going on. Then, like our connection with nature, it got completely cut off. And what the healthy ancestors are those ones that we can't name. They're older than your grandfather and your great-grandfather and my grandmother and my great-grandmother. They're older than them. They're the ones that were not damaged by colonization, that weren't damaged by people taking over their culture. They weren't wounded. They were still living in their culture, in their way, connected to the earth. They are the ones we need to connect with. So when I teach in my work how to connect with them, I journey with plants to connect with them. Once we've connected with them, what we feel is this, and it's in an embodied energy, because, I mean, I could go on a lot, but there's something called mitochondrial DNA, which is not the DNA that you have from your mum and your dad that's mixed up to prevent genetic inbreeding. It's a little bit of DNA that you have that is only come through your mother line and that is never changed. So your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your great-great-grandmother, and so on for thousands of years, and all their brothers, all have this unchanged mitochondrial DNA. So that's why you and I and everybody on this earth, we belong to our mother's clan. So we need to connect to the healthy ancestors of our mother's clan. And then when we behold them, we work with them, we honor them, we have an altar to them. Every day I give them food on my altar. Every day I play my flute to my Naga people on my altar. Every day I reconnect with them. I feel that energy that was cut from my line, and they died. And by beholding them, they then will go and take my great-grandmother, my grandmother, who were wounded, who had, who then I took on their wounds and had sexual abuse and domestic violence and alcoholism and heroin addiction. Those things I carried from my line. They will take those wounded members of my line and they will repatriate them into the clan where they will get healed. I don't have to do anything. I just have to behold them. And the plants help us do this because the plants have this energy of connection, this intelligence, and they help us work with these journeys. So I help people journey through the use of plants to connect with their healthy ancestors, who then we build relationship with them, and they then can repatriate the wounded. Like you said, your grandfather, he needs to be taken back into the clan where the elders, where the indigenous healthy members of our line then help them heal and take them back into the light.
You said that as you honor the ancestors and you play the flute and you have the altar and thing, it's this spirit of remembrance, right? You said you're able to feel their energy. Is that like a physical? Is it just a deep knowing? You physically can feel? It's a
physical energy. You feel it because don't forget, this little bit of mitochondrial DNA is a bit of information that is unchanged. Like I said, your mom and her brothers, your brothers and sisters, your grandmother and her brothers all have this same energy, and this resonates. And once you reconnect with them, that's your clan. You feel it. When I take people on journeys, I always say, you will know when you have connected because you will feel this powerful, unconditional support, love, and guidance. It's like it touches you on the adrenals. It's your life force. How did we get here? We got here because of the toil and the work of our ancestors. We are just a continuation. And this energy, we need to reconnect with. Of course, Christian, the church, industrialization, colonization, they didn't want us to be connected to our true power, our true force that comes from the earth, that comes from these people that were close to the earth, that knew what they were doing. But now, with all the shit that's going off now in the earth, this is why they're calling us. They have the knowledge of how to get back to harmony with the earth.
That's good. I had and I want to talk to you about this connection too. And I know kind of jumping ahead, but it seems like all of this stuff's connected anyway. So I feel like we can kind of go back and forth. I had a deep, you would call a hero dose of psilocybin mushrooms, and we took it on the Native American grounds. We rented a cabin out there and we did it. And there was definitely the ancestral spirits, and it was, hey, we're here, we're watching over you. There was like angelic presence that was there. There was a reassurance that, hey, all of your ancestors have been to this very place that you're doing. It's lost. This was a rite of passage that we all took. I mean, I've studied it, I know it, but it was like different to be on the land and on the ground and just be comforted that, hey, this is your rite of passage. We're with you, you know, and it's so crazy.
Well, I work with psilocybin, and my husband, as I said, is a psychiatrist, and we sit for people who are doing heroic doses of psilocybin. And I myself have done heroic doses of psilocybin. And I believe, and the more I work with this plant medicine, the more I see that actually today, the overriding force that is coming through us onto the planet is ancestral. And this plant medicine is here for that now. It is guiding us. And I myself, when I take heroic doses of psilocybin, I feel the ancestors with me. I walk with them. I feel them walking in my body. We are one. And this is what I believe is the biggest opening of the transformation that we need in the world today. And we can't change the world with the same ways that are destroying it. Mm-hmm. So we can only change it with new ways, new medicines, different ways of approaching it. And I think it's within each one of us to reconnect and to use these plant medicines that have the wisdom and know what we need to do something to move forward in the situation that we're in as humanity.
Is there a difference though when it comes to fungus and plants? There's this debate that, I mean, a lot of people say that it's not even from here. Just the way that, you know, mushrooms are able to grow and they're just totally different from plants. Do you have a distinction there when it comes to plants? I mean, I know it kind of grows through the mycelium, so it's definitely connected to the earth. Is there a difference and a distinction there versus plants versus mushrooms?
I don't really see the difference between plants and mushrooms. What I see is, the way I look at it is, I see that each living member of the plant world or vegetable world or vegetation world, I see the plant or the mushroom as just a physical manifestation. But what we're actually working with is the being behind the physical manifestation. So another group of plants that are doing a lot of work in the world today are trees, the master trees, the trees that have been here for thousands of years. And the way when I connect with those trees, what I'm connecting with isn't the tree with the trunk and the wood and the leaves, is the being behind the form. What is the being that manifested this physical manifestation? What is the being behind the psilocybin? It's not the actual mushroom. It's the being that brought this mushroom and its molecules into existence. There was an energy behind that, which is the soul, the being.
Yeah. Terence McKenna has kind of likened it to a walkie-talkie with like this is the way to speak with the angels or the ancestors, or if you will. And yeah. I really like that analogy, because there's these spiritual technologies that are in the DNA of the plants that allow us to connect with higher beings, aspects of our higher selves, and the spirits that are behind the plants. And so, talking about that a little bit, it could be scary for a lot of people. But there is a lot of people listening to this who are in westernized church and Christianity and, you know, shamanism and the plants and things like that. It could be scary. Sorcery even. Unclean spirits or demonic deceiving spirits that want to contact you and possess you through the plants. Is there any negative energies or beings that want to come through? Not saying that they're uncomfortable beings are negative, because just because something feels different, it's foreign, it's uncomfortable, that doesn't mean it's negative, evil, demonic. But are there any of those types of energies on the other side that are like deceptive, that want to get through plants and things like that?
Well, really, I mean, there's a lot to say on this subject, but the thing that we've noticed, I do consultations with my husband, with people all over the world, and actually the most perturbing energy that comes from what we could say is the spirit world comes from, like you said, if we don't work with the healthy ancestors, if we don't heal our named ancestors that have been traumatized and wounded and are suffering from addiction and are suffering from or have suffered from addiction, who have suffered from violence. These are the energies. If we don't bring them into consciousness and we don't look at our line and connect with the healthy ancestors and work with them, what happens is unconsciously we relive the wounds of our ancestors. So we too have problems with addiction, with violence, with abuse, with not reaching our full potential in the world. Because if we don't bring the wounds of our ancestors and then connect with the healthy ancestors, if we don't bring this whole lineage into consciousness and reconnect with our clan, then the unconscious just keeps on repeating these stories until someone becomes the shaman of the line. Now, not everyone, but there's someone in every lineage that is the shaman of that lineage. And their responsibility is to work with and heal the line, with working hand in hand with the healthy ancestors. And unless we do that, somebody will always, one or several members of a lineage that is born in the next generation will repeat. And that's why you get in the reservations, and you get in India, where the people that I come from, you get a lot of alcoholism, you get a lot of addiction, you get a lot of abuse, because these are just being repeated. We have to bring it into consciousness. So for me, that's where the main traumatic, negative, and we look at their line and we see that the grandfather suffered from this, and this has never been dealt with. Or the grandmother, lost 5 children through being killed by whatever. If we don't look at this and we don't heal this, it will be repeated. So for me, that's the most negative, the spiritual stuff that comes through the line. And the other thing is plants. I work with a lot of plants that protect. So when we're working with this type of stuff, I work with plants that are full of light. If I feel there's a danger in a line of something coming through that we don't need, that people are tuning into very negative members of their ancestry, then we'll work with plants like St. John's wort that is really chases the devil.
What type of, when we say spirits, let's kind of break that down for just a lay person getting into this. Again, McKenna and some of the different people he's worked with over the years talk about that every different plant has a spirit behind it, a goddess, an angel, some type of benevolent force for the most part. And even the plants that we eat, you know what I'm saying, the nourishments for our bodies, and that we need to learn to respect the plants, and there's this mutual respect that needs to happen. Do you believe that every plant, every living sentient plant has a spirit, or is it are they all connections to one spirit, or one, like, groups in the ethers, and these different plants kind of again are like the walkie-talkies, or are the plants themselves embodied with this spirit? How does that really work?
The way that I feel it is that every plant has its own being, its own spirit, but for example, take the oak tree. Every oak tree is connected to the same spirit. So when you talk to one oak tree, you're communicating with all the oak trees. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's almost like just with the different groups or whatever.
Yes, it's a group spirit for each species.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's what I thought. As far as like connecting with the spirits that are behind the plants. Now, what about, do you get into nature spirits at all, as far as like the elemental kingdoms, as far as like fairies and gnomes and sylphs and undines and things like that? Do you look into that as well with your work?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I'm very aware when I'm working in nature of the different elemental spirits that make up a place. So I will tune into water and tune into the spirit of the water and tune into how that can be a healing force for me when I tune into it, how I can work with it for my own healing and thus for the healing of the whole. The same when I'm in a place, not only do I tune in and communicate with the different plants, but I'll tune into the place. Because each place in nature, like you said, when you took the psilocybin and you were in your place of your ancestral home, you tuned in and you knew that was your gateway, your portal. You were meant to be there. That was your right. So each place feeds us with the spirit of the place. And I think that's very important, not just to home in on the plants, but to home in on the place, on the mountains, the spirit of the mountain. And we have to be careful because we need to respect, which is where things like leaving offerings for these spirits. I always leave an offering. I always, do something that means that I'm honoring the fact that they exist.
Is it something that they're like willing to work with us? Do you feel like they're almost begging, again, if they're calling out through many different means and spiritual awakening and using the plants, are they eager to work with people? Are they trying to communicate? Do they see the earth almost coming to an end? Like, if we keep doing this kind of things, obviously, I mean, nature's God. Like, nature's gonna take over. If I leave my car parked for a couple of years, that car is gone. That car will be swallowed up and engulfed in. So nature's gonna take care of itself. But do you find that they're like willing to work with us and they want to, or is it like a mutual thing, or is it like we're taking advantage of them, or they're just always there and say, hey, this is just what we do, it's on you? How does that work with their when you peer in, do they greet you, I've been waiting for you kind of thing?
I think for a start, all plants have their own sort of personality or their own energetic resonance. So some plants are harder to get to know, like people. Some plants are harder to get to know than others, and some are like out there. Once
you really get to know me, I'm not that bad after all.
Exactly. But I also like to look at it in terms of the psyche. So the anatomy of the psyche is that we aren't just a physical body, as you know. We're a physical body, we have an emotional body, a mental body, we have a spiritual body, but we're also part of what's called the collective unconscious, which is really the database of the whole of existence. And plants are part of that as well. So I think once we become more and more whole and more aware that we are all these things and also connected to the whole, then we, in a way, tune in and resonate with those beings that are resonating similarly to us. So if I'm really like asking questions about how to move forward with my ancestry or with connecting because I'm really feeling frightened about what's happening in the world or whatever, and I put it out there, and then I go into nature, I believe that we'll be guided through the fact that we're all connected to those plants and beings that are ready to work with us. And that's how I was a herbalist in Europe. I knew all the plants. I taught botany. I was intimate with all those plants that I'd grown up with. And then when I moved to North America, I moved to Taos, New Mexico, and it's a completely different flora. And at first I thought, shit, I don't feel connected. I don't know who these plants are. It's like being put into a new family and I don't know anyone. And it's interesting because usually in Europe, I'd go really fast. I wanted to know every plant. Here, I took my time. And what I did is I connected through this part of me in the collective unconscious, and I allowed those plants that were ready and we had something to do together to show themselves. So I haven't learned as many plants. I haven't communicated with as many plants, but the ones I have been life-saving. I had cancer when I got here, and the right plant which is the yerba mansa, which is a plant that's very connected with Mexican indigenous people, came to me and really helped me to heal my cancer. So I do believe that the right plants will come to us. We don't have to be greedy. We don't have to force it. We just have to put it out there.
Now, the different ways that we're able to communicate with the plants, does it differ on the way that they're ingested and we take them in our bodies? Because like I've seen, there was this big thing for a couple years in the mid to late 2000s of Salvia divinorum becoming this extract that you could buy at the gas station or at any head shop. And so teenagers were going to get it. And it was a powdered extract, and they would smoke it, and it would shoot them into wherever. They would lose control of their bodies. They would drool. They would urinate on themselves. They didn't know where they were. It was something that most people said was scary. It wasn't fun. There was nothing to learn. I've since watched a few documentaries on salvia, and they've kind of done. I think the BBC did a. Clinical studies on it, of where someone who was a psychonaut, who was very connected with medicines and LSD and things like that, took it, and then they took a guy from the corporate world and he took it, but they were chewing on the leaves instead of smoking it and instantly getting to this crazy place, coming back not knowing what's going on. But what was happening when they were just chewing the leaves, it was almost like they were taking it differently, and it was I guess the genetic compounds were being released different through their bloodstream, a lot slower. Maybe it's really powerful, and the chewing on the leaf made it to be a lot slower and to getting into this euphoric state. I know Hamilton Morris with Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia has a beautiful documentary where he goes to Mexico and does some with a shaman healer lady that seems beautiful, that he's chewing on it. He's just crying in this euphoric, healing, blissful state. What is so the different ways that we consume, whether we smoke it. Other people who have said they've smoked it, they've been visited, what they said was like a spirit of a woman that said, hey, I'm not to be smoked. Do not do this again. Don't enter through this gate type deal. Is there a difference there?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question because, first of all, I think many plant spirits are getting, in a way, they're losing their souls. For example, take cannabis. And instead of it being, cannabis makes its own constituents in the way that is right for it when it's in nature. So there's a lot more CBD, which is an antipsychotic, which will balance out the THC, and the plant knows what it's doing. And it offers this to us. And what we've done is we've taken it. We want more THC. We've designed these plants that are completely not what you would find in nature. And we are making so much money out of it. And so I know many people, they only know one plant. They're hooked on cannabis. They grow cannabis, but, they wouldn't know what another plant is. And I think that's where the soul of the plant gets prostituted, and it loses something. And the connection to us isn't healthy. Same happened to vines from winemaking all over the world.
Yeah.
A vine is something that's supposed to grow up trees. It's a vine. It's not what we see in the vineyard.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing. The other thing that I think is really important is before we even ingest anything, this plant communication is about, like you and I are having this conversation. We've never met before, but there's a vibe. There's an energy going between us where we want to communicate and we're sharing information. Well, that's exactly the same. I think the first step for anyone is to learn to communicate with plants without having to ingest them. And that's where the magic is. So my teacher in France he worked for 20 years with traditional practitioners in Africa, in Burkina Faso, where plant communication, talking to plants, is part of their world. Like the kids here know how to read and write because they go to school. The kids there, nobody questions it. They all know how to communicate with plants. It's part of their world. And he taught us practical ways of tuning into plants. So first of all, feeling that energetic, where the plant ends. So if you're talking to a tree or communicating with a tree, you have to feel your way. Where does that tree end? And it's usually huge. The electromagnetic how can you say it, sort of the field of that tree is usually huge. So first of all, what I learned and now what I teach is to feel, where does that tree begin and end? And how can I feel it? And how can I interact with my own energetic field on that tree? And once I build that relationship, then, one of the things we forget because of our analytical minds, we always want to control the scenario. But just by tuning into a tree and allowing it to lead the way, to let go of ourselves, to get out of our own way and say yes to the communication through our heart doorway and let a plant lead us into their world, into what they know, is incredible without having to ingest anything. So for me, that's really, the first step is to get to know the plants where you live and really know them. And the traditional practitioners in Burkina Faso would say, you need to communicate deeply with a plant 9 times before you even start to know that plant. And then the plants come to you in dreams. I mean, I've had plants protect me in really difficult dreams where I was in danger, and boom, a plant will come.
Yeah.
I've had the right plants come to me for healing, like I said, from cancer. I've had plants like I was in Seattle area in Washington in this huge forest, and we got to know this new plant called Devil's Club. And I took just a couple of drops of the tincture one night before going to bed, and I saw it transform my wounds that I was carrying. Right. The spirit of it was so strong, and the light came in, and it was very masculine. It transformed in one go. Whereas the yerba mansa that I mentioned is very feminine, the dark goddess, and she works with you on a much deeper sort of long-term level. So the plants are holding all this information. I think, once people should do that before they get onto psilocybin and other things. DMT, those are big openers, but people need to take these steps to first say, who am I in nature? How do I communicate with my surroundings?
Yeah.
And then the other plants will be a lot gentler with them because they know that they've done the steps that are needed to, connect.
Yeah, that's awesome. For me, it definitely was like the psilocybin was calling me. Now I was working with other plants, and none of them really psychoactive, I guess, to the degree. But and I still tell people this when people ask me, should they use psilocybin mushrooms? Should they do this? I don't tell anybody they should do anything. But I tell them that if it's calling you, then you have no choice but to do it, because I felt like it was something that was calling to me of watching documentaries, and I couldn't get enough of it. And there was a healthy fear there. I was scared of it. I didn't want to go into something and lose myself for hours on end and be in the spirit realm. So there was tons of research that just kept presenting itself. And I literally felt like it was calling me to this song and dance, and really helped me with my purpose in life and kind of remembering who I am and what I have to bring to the table. And it really changed my life. So even though we talk about this stuff and it sounds so grandiose, everybody wants to do it, and maybe they should, but I would tell people, if it calls you, if it's calling you, then you really have no choice. And I really think that it was calling me through, again, the documentaries and this hunger within me to want to do more research and make sure that I heard everyone's story and hear the horror stories and hear the good stuff, to where I can make an educated decision and say, yes, this is something that I'm ready to move forward with, and I'm ready for this conversation. And when I did, it changed my life. And I really do believe in the research and looking into these things. Exactly. But again, there was other things such as maybe using tobacco. We'll go into some detail about that stuff. Using tobacco to clear the air, and it definitely is big with the ancestral spirits. Sage, Palo Santo, copal resin. Let's see some of the other ones I was using. Blue lotus flowers again. Yeah. Using some of these other things before it was diving deep into the world of psychedelics or anything like that. And it's not even dove deep. It was a 1 or 2 time experience that really changed me. So I really do feel like that they have the ability to call us. And I guess, again, going back to what you were saying about speaking to the trees or speaking to the plants, there's this old adage again, like you said, about speaking to the flowers and speaking to the plants to help them to grow. And maybe there was something really to that, that's kind of carried on almost as an old wives' tale now, and as a joke in passing, go out there and speak to the flowers and watch them grow. But there's seemingly something there to that, right?
Well, definitely. I think just one thing to say about what you were saying about being called by the psilocybin. I think if people are thinking they want to do a heroic dose of psilocybin, maybe they could start by microdosing first, getting to know the molecule, getting familiar with it. So maybe microdosing. And also, like I said, my husband and I, we sit for people. We've sat for 75-year-old therapists who've never done anything to take a heroic dose of psilocybin, but we're there, we've done it, we know what we're doing, we introduce them to it, we get them ready, and then there's an integration process after. So there are things you can do to make it safer if you've never done it before and you're not sure. And just to follow on about the old wives' tale of talking to plants, I think what's interesting, and this again comes from my teacher who worked with the African tribes, the nomadic tribes in Burkina Faso. The way they introduce themselves to a plant when they want to communicate with a plant is they introduce their lineage. They say to the plant, you can say it in your head, but who they are, where they were born, who their mother was, where she was born, and who their grandmother was, and where she was born. And plants, and the minute you do that, if you stand empty and you, with your heart open, and you introduce yourself through your lineage, straight away you'll feel the plant come closer. Because plants are organized in lineages. They understand that. They have a lineage themselves. They don't want to just see some random person hanging out there. They want to know where you belong, where you've come from. They want to feel that you know where you've come from. What is the energy that's bringing you here? What is upholding you? So that, again, is a beautiful link between ancestral healing and reconnecting with plants. They go hand in hand. And just to finish, I think a lot of people who feel called to the plants is a preparation for going deeply into their own ancestral stories.
That's good. Going back to two things I wanted to point out again, just kind of going back to the salvia thing. Do you have any experience with salvia?
Not really. My son has had some experience with it, but no, I haven't. I don't want to say I have because I haven't.
What about instead of psilocybin, which is the popular one for the most part, but what about Amanita muscaria and the muscimol? Have you had any encounters with that?
I haven't had any experience. I have a friend who's a herbalist in Germany who's working with it in herbal healing and finding it very powerful, but I haven't had any experience.
Okay. Yeah, we got some retreats set up. We're about to partake of the Amanita, and I'm just doing my research again. It's totally different. It's not even the same thing, honestly. So kind of going forward thinking that it's the same thing, and it's not. So but I do like what you said about even the kind of microdose or just getting to know it. And that's kind of what it was for me with the psilocybin. Going back to that was we did maybe 2 grams at first, the first time. And it was like a philosophical, introspective, I need to get my stuff together. This is how I do it. And there was a lot of stuff communicated, but it was so funny because I went from that and then I was doing interviews and I was speaking as an expert. Oh yes, magic mushrooms are very beautiful. They'll show you about yourself. They'll help you connect. And I was doing all these shows and stuff. And, but then we went for the hero dose and I was like, I thought I knew. I had no idea because it was almost something like what people describe as ayahuasca or DMT, these crazy far out shooting into the middle of the cosmos. Most people don't equate that to like a hero dose, but for me, it was like, it totally was. It pulled me in and shot me out and it was intense. And, but yeah, it started with, it wasn't really a microdose, but it's just a smaller, okay, I can feel this, because there's feelings, there's time is weird. I know you coaching people, let them know, look, there's a lot of people who have bad encounters and feel like they've died and they're in purgatory because there's no time. And they're staring at the clock and it's not moving, and it's just this weird feeling that you kind of get used to, and you know that you're going to come back, you know that things are going to kind of snap back to normal, but it's the fear that what if it doesn't? There's a lot to be said when it comes to psilocybin and those encounters.
Yeah. Well, getting back to what you said about psilocybin and the ancestral story, what I've noticed with people that we sat for is, like I said at the beginning, depending on what our ancestral line is. I mean, you're lucky and I'm lucky because we have indigenous people not far away in our line. But some Northern Europeans have indigenous people way, way back. And you imagine the journey to get home. And the mushrooms I've seen, people going through the traumas and the difficulties of getting back to that place of healthy indigenous ancestry is huge. The mushrooms help, but it also means, if you're aware of it, that you have to go through all the difficulties and the long journey home. And that's part of the karma. If people colonize so many places, then if their clan has done that for generations and generations and generations, what they've left for their descendants is a really long journey home. But I believe the psilocybin is what helps us do that. So when people are going through a difficult time, I've noticed when I'm sitting for them, it's often because they're in a difficult part of the journey home and they have to go through it. It's better to go through it than to back up and get frightened. And, when you start to get frightened and think, oh, I'm going to die, you're not confronting. So we often prepare people with this ancestral knowledge and, so that they know that this is a journey that their ancestors left them. But the only way home is to go through it.
For those people who are listening who may be Christian, like I said, we do have a strong Christian audience here, but it's not all. We have an eclectic audience. But for the Christian, is there any ties to the Bible at all? I mean, there's some interesting things when it comes to the original anointing oil. A lot of people saying that could have been cannabis. A form of this healing balm or tincture that was cannabis oil. There's, the Holy Communion, which has some weird things going back to the Amanita muscaria as the research I'm doing now. But for me, I would see because I think the Christian church would say that you don't need any of that. You just need God, or you just need Jesus. And I've had people even recently, when we talk about any type of spirits or angels or demons, they don't want to talk about, they just need Jesus or God. So that you have those people who understand that. For me, in my theology, the way I see it as God being the universal source of love and of light and just of all that is. And these different beings are ways that we communicate with the divine creator through the plants, again being like a walkie-talkie or a portal to a different aspect of that creator, right? So why would you need to go to the plants when you can go directly to the creator type deal? Is there any type of way that you would help kind of bridge those ideas? Because I don't want to necessarily make people feel like they have to abandon their faith or abandon their religious beliefs and things like that to incorporate their connection with plant medicines as well.
Well, what I'd say is, I said my school is called AromaGnosis, and gnosis means deep inner knowing through objective experience, and that's what I really believe. I believe that I don't really know something if somebody's just told it to me. That isn't wisdom. Yeah. That's information. And so really, I think it's up to each one of us to find our personal myth and our journey through this, through our own experience. So I'm not here to tell anybody what they believe is right or wrong. But what I do say to my students is, gnosis is about your own inner experiential knowing. So really, wisdom and knowledge is what you know from inside yourself. So whatever you choose on your journey of life to know through your own experience is your choice. And, if you've chosen the Bible, then fair enough. As long as you're not just taking what other people have said and just saying, oh, well, that's the truth. If you're taking it and transforming it into knowledge through your own journey with it, then fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that with the whole gnosis thing. Not being Gnostic per se, but gnosis, again, knowledge gained through experience, and and not going off on this little tangent too long, but the whole deal with Christianity as far as let me tell you what God did for me or how he changed my life. And so people would respond to this gospel that what God did for so-and-so versus what God can do with you. Again, the Bible even bids us to like taste and see that the Lord is good. Like there's this invitation with the Creator to really be connected and not just respond off of someone else's experience and stuff. And I know those experiences kind of create a hunger within us, right? When we hear people's testimonies, what happened for one person is able to be done for us as well. So definitely this song and dance through experience, again, knowledge gained through experience. And so there's a lot of people I think listening who have that belief with the gnosis thing, because you know, just the blind dogma and religion for the sake of religion is going out the window. I'm sorry, you know. And so the plants are speaking.
I think it's the difference between religion and spirituality.
Yeah, for sure. And you could still be religious and spiritual. Again, I don't think you have to abandon the religion of your fathers or whatever, or your foundation, even is what I call it. Like my foundation is this is what I came into it with. We're steadily changing. We're steadily evolving. Every few months, our genetic makeup is changing. Our body, our gut bacteria, and you know, the way we feel and the way we new information comes. And so just being open to that process. And I think the plants play a big part of that. Again, just understanding what you put in your body. And when we're speaking about that, we have to be speaking about the plants as well, that they have nutrients and things that we're missing out on because, you know, there's and even that's kind of becoming more popular now, the whole vegetarian and, you know what I'm saying, vegan aspects as well. People are returning to like, look, we are connected. We were supposed to eat them because we're missing out on nutrients and vitamins and things like that. So people are returning to that. So again, I do think podcasts and talks like this really stir the pot for people to do their own research, and don't take my word for it. But the information is out there. It's universal law. It's the same today, yesterday, and forever. It's not going to change. And so this invitation to the song and dance with these spirits, if you will, willingly or unwillingly, we're making pacts and communion with all types of energies that we don't even know about, right?
And I think, you know, as you talk, what I'm tuning into is getting back to our indigenous people in all of our lines. These people had a spiritual technology wherever they were in the world. Often, for example, I was in the UK not long ago, and they found the oldest site that they've excavated in the UK ever, with the oldest forms of homes. And they found these shamanic masks made out of deer skulls. And they're exactly the same as the Siberian shaman's mask. So, you know, the indigenous people, wherever they were in the world, had a spiritual technology that was very, very advanced, that we, you know, the European ethnobotanists and people who studied these people made it sound like, you know, the noble savage and very simple. But in fact, when you tune into it, I know when I tuned into my people, and now I'm in connection with those Naga people, and I have researched it, and I've gone inside myself to tune in, that spiritual technology is incredible. So really, we all have it in us. It's all part of us. And for me, it's using the plants and working with the plants who are very aware of this to reconnect with this ancient spiritual technology that's been lost, that is, for me, the ultimate spirituality.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think they go hand in hand. That was one thing for me, is like, it's more, you know, the more spiritual work that I did and the more healing, it was like this invitation to the earth. It was an invitation to nature. I mean, simplistic things of going to the beach and just respecting the ocean. You know what I'm saying? Of these, just being conscious of small things, the wind blowing, like putting your feet on the ground and just communicating with the plants, or just being in nature and hiking. Like this small, like doing the spiritual work would beckon me out into nature. And I think they go hand in hand. Let me ask you about this too, because this isn't something that I've practiced, but it's becoming more and more interesting to me, just because I know it's it's a different culture. But the Mexican people and the Day of the Dead, which just passed, of this day, like, it just seems so like honoring for. And I don't know exactly how they celebrate it. I've seen documentaries and stuff, but seems honoring for the family and friends to get together and to remember, to tell stories, even if it's just one day a year, which us Westerners don't even have. We may have a picture that we walk by, oftentimes not even that, but this day where you can get together and tell stories and drink, if you will, and be festive and remember the beautiful things that those family members have brought to the table. There's a Disney movie, I believe it is, that just came out called Coco, which also lit a fire in me about this whole thing as well. Yeah. Very interesting. What do you have to say about the Day of the Dead? Do you have any experience with that? And do you do that daily? How does that work for you?
Yeah, well, the Day of the Dead is one example of one culture that has kept their ancestral connection and their ancestral veneration. But remember that all cultures had some form of this connection, all of them, every civilization on the earth. And that's why this relationship was so important. And what's interesting about Coco and the Day of the Dead are the marigold plants, the marigold flowers. So these flowers were actually used before the Mexicans and the Day of the Dead because they were used by the Aztecs. And they were used for the same reason. The Aztecs had a Day of the Dead. It was actually not in November. It was in August. I think the Day of the Dead is actually at the very end of October, beginning of November. But the Aztecs, it was in August. But the marigolds have this energy of light. And what they use, you saw it in the film in Coco, but the marigolds have been used for thousands of years as to light up the pathway for the ancestors to get back to the festivities of the Day of the Dead. And I use in my work with people, I use the marigold essential oil, the aroma of marigold. And what I do is with drumming and the use of this plant, I will lead them the other way. So I'll lead them through the light and the scent of this plant back to their healthy ancestors. So this is one of the main plants that I use in these healing journeys.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, which comes from the Day of the Dead. I mean...
I didn't even put two and two together at that point. At least I don't remember it. But yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to have to look that up. Again, so you mentioned essential oils. It's... just essential oils and aromatherapy and these oils, and looking at even like I go back to the Bible a lot, but seeing how the Magi brought Jesus frankincense and things like this, and like the myrrh. You know what I'm saying, the different myrrh, the different healing properties that are within these plants and in these resins and things like that. They do so much, right? I mean, I know that's probably a whole podcast just on aromatherapy of lighting a candle and just that scent, putting your body in a relaxed state. I remember one of the first times we lit an aromatherapy candle in the house, and it felt like we were all high. We were just really relaxed, sunk into the couch, and it was like, I feel like I've been either drinking or smoking, but we haven't done anything. Just I forget which candle it was, but it just relaxed everybody in there, and it was really cool. And just the scent with our genetic makeup and our, what it does to our bodies. And again, going back to the Bible says we're fearfully and wonderfully made, that God or the Creator created us and that scent and that flower, knowing that there's a connection that we need it. When we need to relax, we don't need to drink a six-pack. We can light this candle and just fall into that scent and just be relaxed. And there's all of this interesting, spiritual, yet earthly. It's not esoteric. We just forgot about all of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, the sense of smell is one of our least, we've kind of let it go. We haven't realized the importance of our sense sense of smell. And one of the things to remember is that all our other senses get filtered by the thalamus. So, for example, if your sense of touch wasn't filtered by the thalamus, the clothes that you are wearing would drive you crazy, because you'd just be feeling them all the time. The same, if your sight wasn't filtered by the thalamus, you'd be going crazy because you wouldn't see just what you want to look at. Everything would be coming in, every single thing in your vision. Same with hearing. You filter out a lot of the background noise, so you can just concentrate on what you want to hear. But the sense of smell goes straight to the thalamus. It is the only sense that's not filtered. And the thalamus is, next to the limbic brain, which is where these emotions and feelings take place. So the sense of smell immediately triggers memories, emotions, and works with the unconscious realms, which are the realms of wisdom that we are not conscious of. So, it's really important. And not only, there are some smells, for example, I distilled yerba mansa, the plant I told you about with my husband. We have a small still. And most herbalists just tincture it and use it for women's issues. But it smelled really good, the root. So we distilled it. And we live in an earthship in the mountains where there are no joining walls. So the kids were asleep, but, the smell of the distilling went all around the house. And that night, my husband went to bed and I stayed downstairs, and I went into this sort of space that was more like I was hallucinating. And it took me really deep. And I was working on, like I said, my issues, why I had this cancer. And then I went upstairs, and my husband, our windows just look out. We call it the control center because we have these huge earthship windows that look out into the mountains and into the sky. And we look at the stars and the planets. And this night, I lay there with him, and we were looking at them, and Venus was coming straight for us. It felt like we were on a trip. But all we'd done is distilled this plant. And then the next day we started to geek out and research, and we found that one of the molecules in this plant is a precursor to mescaline. So, we were actually getting the psychotropic effects of the aroma of the plant. And it gave us a huge learning. It gave us a teaching. So, some of these smells aren't just, nice smells. Nard was mentioned in the Bible. Mary Magdalene put it on Jesus' feet. And we don't use it anymore because it's non-sustainable. It's a small plant that's been over-harvested. But when we did use it, we used it a lot for grounding. It brought people back to earth, people that were like out of their bodies and not anchored. And then we would use the nard to bring them back in. Now we use other plants. But, these plants have very, very beautiful intelligence, and it's like the soul. The scent of the plant is like the soul of the plant. So getting back to the Day of the Dead and the marigolds, imagine this plant, the smell of the plant and the light of the plant has been used for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Well, what better plant to get you to connect with your ancestors than a plant that the road has been trodden from these people for thousands of years. This plant knows it's a road well walked. The plant knows what it's doing. It's been used for this for thousands and thousands of years. So we use another for shadow work. A lot of the ancestral stuff, it's in people's shadows. And we have one plant, labdanum, which is like a resin that a plant exudes that takes us straight into the shadow and digs up the stuff that we need to bring forth and look at so we can move on in our lives. So, our use of plants, the way we use them, as I said, my husband's a psychiatrist. We use them for the mind. We use them for journeying. We use them for powerful. And so I have a website called cathysattars.com where we have really picked out all over the world just those plants with the smell that we know are going to be powerful.
What's that? Say that site one more time.
Cathy's Attars. So Cathy with an S and then ATTARS.com. And it's where we pick the very, very special plants to work with the psyche.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
So, some of these plants we're talking about are just like, as far as like the hallucinogens, or they do like you got to kind of be ready to do the spiritual work type deal. Are there some of these plants, as far as like sage or again tobacco or different resins and stuff like that you can or do use on a daily basis, like almost like vitamins or something that you start your day with even?
Yeah, for example, it depends where people are at, and I won't use the same plant all the time. It depends what I need. But one plant we use a lot that's on my website is yarrow. And we use yarrow. It's really the wounded healer's plant. It's the plant for people who are healing, but who are healing themselves first and then helping others. But I use it a lot for boundaries. So, people who are empathic or who, especially at this time of year, there are parties, work parties, people are supposed to be having festivities, it's Christmas. But what people really need is to feel safe in their own personal space. So if I'm working with someone or myself and I feel like my boundaries are being infringed on and I'm taking up other people's energy, I'll take a drop of yarrow and I'll put it around me as I get up in the morning. And that protects me. It keeps me in my own space, personal space, and people can't come into that space. I'll use grounding like Angelica. I'll use it on my feet if I feel like I'm not grounded enough, I'm not earthed enough. And I also make incense with a lot of the resins, which I use on my ancestral altar. So I'll collect the resins where I live in the mountains, the pine resin, the ponderosa resin, and then I'll mix them with other resins that I buy, like frankincense, myrrh, copal, and I'll burn them on my altar for my ancestors. And another thing that I think is good for people is to tune into where your people were from and what were the plants they would have used. What were the plants that they really had an intimate relationship with, that they healed with, which they ate, and get into those plants. And, because you have that in your blood, you have that in you.
This connection, it seems like it just keeps getting deeper and deeper the more research that you do. And, we came out of the earth. We're going back to the earth. Our connection with oxygen and the trees, if they don't exist, then we don't exist. Looking at bee pollen, the bees that collect pollen from the flowers, and if we partake of that honey, then it helps our immune system and it helps our allergies. Like they're kind of helping serve us with this medicine again with the pollen and things like that. It gets very intricate with our diet and all of this stuff in that we're more connected, and I think people need to research this stuff a lot more. And is it intimidating at all? Some of it may seem intimidating of people not knowing, where to start. We've mentioned several, plants and things like that. Is there a good place to start? I know you have a lot of courses on your website. There's a bunch of free resources as well. I'm on the Cathy's atars.com and a lot of info there as well. Where could somebody start? Because us going over this huge overview seems, it seems like a lot, but is there something practical that people can incorporate in their life? Yeah,
I think the best way to start is to get to know the nature nearest to you. So if you even live in a city, it could be in a park. Just go and tune in to the trees that live in the same environment as you, that are breathing the same air as you, that are going, that are subjected to the same outside forces as you, and go and connect with them rather than just walking your dog in the park and letting your dog piss up the tree. Go to the tree, light a candle, honor it, tune into it. Or if you live in the countryside, get out there and don't go out there with your friends and your family, because then you just end up talking. Go into nature on your own. That's one of the things that I think people don't do enough. People don't go into nature on their own. So if they do go in, they're with their friends, they're with their family, they're chatting, the dog's running, they're calling the dog, they're doing this, having a picnic. No, just go into nature, walk in it, take your time. It's like a church. Go in there and feel it. And little by little, you start to tune in more and more. And then you can start doing some classes. My class on intuitive plant communication takes you through it. It holds you by the hand, and it takes you through on all the different levels of how to practically tune into those plants. Write a journal, sit down by the tree, feel the tree, write. All these little things. Just get out there and tune in and honor and collect some plants and things that attract you. Don't take them if you don't know what they are. Just start to learn them one by one, But it's there for us. It's like we're blind. People are blind to what's actually just on your front doorstep.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, especially going out there by yourself, just because you're more focused. And if you want this spiritual encounter, it's hard. It's hard incorporating other people. I've had so many encounters by myself. It's almost like I'm lying about it, because most of the time I'm by myself, and then I try to bring other people, and it just doesn't. It's not the same. But when you're by yourself, you're not tuned into what are they thinking? Are they having a good time? Are they comfortable? Are they feeling it yet?
Exactly.
But by yourself, like, you get no brownie points. There is no, there's nothing that's, that even has your attention. You don't have to entertain someone or even be with it in their presence. But you being by yourself, it really opens it up to experience, the communication with those, what I'm saying, with the elements and stuff. And
the other thing, just you said about food, start to drink some herbal tea.
Yeah.
Start there. I remember when I was a kid, I left my family home and I went to London to study. And I was 17, 18, and I had a little apartment. And I started buying chamomile and making chamomile tea.
Yeah.
And I remember to this day, it tuned me in. Just by, instead of drinking soda, in the evening, make that nice chamomile tea. Don't buy it in a sachet. Buy the plants from a herbal store or collect some plants in nature that and make the tea ceremonially. Take your time, be careful of how you make it, and drink that tea. And that in itself, you're ingesting the plant world. That in itself. And the other thing I wanted to say before was, with the psilocybin and other plant medicines like that, always make an intention. Intention is really important. Where am I going? What do I want to learn? What are my intentions? Be very clear about what our intentions are. Because if we don't care where we're going, then we could be taken anywhere. So really know where you want to go.
Yeah, that's good. I just got into the chamomile as well. So that's something that I just incorporated.
Yeah, that's great.
That and some of these other plants. Someone mentioned turmeric. Turmeric is a really good one.
Yeah.
A lot of people are. I remember listening to an interview with George Norrie from Coast to Coast AM, and they asked him, before the interview was over, is there any secrets? Is there anything that you would like the people to know? Is there anything that we need? And he's like, turmeric. I've been taking turmeric capsules every day, and it's doing wonders, for my health. And I take it too. I put turmeric in everything. I can put it in my coffee and put it on my, whether I'm eating chicken or vegetables or anything. It literally goes with anything. To put it in my coffee and not even, be a big, disservice to the taste. It actually tastes pretty good and goes with a lot of stuff. But what about the spiritual uses of tobacco? That's something, again, that's like kind of been demonized with the big tobacco companies and cancer and all of this kind of stuff with tobacco. But, tobacco is a very sacred plant as well, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that plants like that, which were really very, very sacred, and there were songs to go with the tobacco. In Peru, there are these sacred songs that are used when you're using tobacco, and tobacco is also used for ancestral connection. But I think it's interesting when these sacred plants get used in the wrong way, and then they turn against mankind. And I think in a way that we have to be careful with cannabis in the same way. We have to be careful with ayahuasca. When people take it and just abuse, then the plant will turn. These plants are stronger than we are in terms of their psyche.
Yeah.
And they, if we try and make a quick way to get to the plant world, then we might not be able to get back. That's why communicating with plants just without ingesting them by the things that I teach in my class, by letting the plant lead the way, by all these different things, in a way, we're learning how to get to the plant world and we learn how to get back. And if we abuse plants, they either turn against us or we get somewhere, but we don't know how to get back.
Yeah, for me, there's a disconnect for me now with marijuana, and because I abused it as a kid. And now there's a disconnect even with my body, and I think I messed something up, or neurotransmitters have kind of synapses in the brain, and it's a disconnect now, and I can't I can't use it anymore because I abused it as a kid, and so that connection there is kind of off for me. Now other people can, and they're fine. But I do see that, and again, there's a lot of studies and stuff like that being done because of this stuff's becoming more popular. Instead of going to kind of what you mentioned, the whole set and setting is the place that you're doing it. People are taking DMT in capsules at parties and things like that. And there's a lot of people going to the Amazon to have these retreats, and there's intention there. Again, set and setting. There are retreats being opened up in the U.S. that have legal exemption where they can use these plant medicines and things, but it's being I don't know if it's a good thing, but you have to be careful. You don't want to abuse anything. And I've been in shamanic journeys and stuff with people who want to do it every weekend. Like the 5 grams of psilocybin. Friends were like, I'm ready to do this next weekend. I was like, I don't think you had the same experience that I had. There's no way. This is going to take me months to unpack all of this information, and all of this stuff. And then they went out and they tried to abuse it. And when it comes to these teachers, I don't think they'll let you abuse it. I don't think, and because he had a very bad experience, was begging for it to stop, and set and setting was out the window, and had loud, crazy music on at a party. And no, it wasn't done in a ritualistic fashion. There was no, we were fasting, we were getting our bodies ready, we weren't eating any meat, we were going into it with intention. You have to respect it. You have to. They're going to make you. There's no when you go on a deep journey like that with some of these stronger teachers.
Definitely.
Let me ask you this before we go. Do you think that again, just where we are now with this disconnect from nature? You mentioned that, the world leaders or the people who govern society or govern free thought or whatever, do you think that this was done on purpose, that they wanted to separate us from nature so that we would be reliant upon them? I mean, they're even taking things out of nature and changing up the genetic makeup of these plants and of things that you can literally get some of this bark, chew on it, and your headache's gone. So they'll take it and they'll modify it and add all types of stuff to it. They'll do research, and it's not the same thing anymore. Much like you're talking about the marijuana, it's not the same thing. So they're using it, so they see the power in it. They're going to it and they're doing surgery on it and giving us something totally different. The free things that God gives us that come from the earth, they're making it illegal in Schedule 1. Let's look at Kratom as well, helping people get off of opiate addiction. I'm in Alabama, it's Schedule 1. If you have it, you're going to jail. And so you have to go to them. You got to go to the big pharma to be able to get Suboxone or whatever it is to try to come off of these substances that your body's addicted to. Now, is this by accident? Did we accidentally get here? Or do you think that this is like some sinister plot by design to have control over the masses?
I think it's a power game. So I think it all is in the hands of power. And the power has taken over. And I think, if we go back to connecting with nature, connecting with our ancestry, once we're connected, we know from where we've come from. We know who we are. We belong to ourselves. So we're much less easily manipulated into the games that are being played for power. And that's exactly what they don't want. It's much easier to disconnect people so that then they're forced to feed into the system that has its own power at the helm rather than being our own master. So that's really where I think it is. It's about, they don't want people to feel that they're connected to their healthy ancestors and they're tuning into their own knowledge and their own wisdom that comes through their line. They don't want people to feel, once you feel really connected to nature and it's alive and it resonates within you and you can go and find your mojo in that, then you're not giving your energy to the system, and the system thrives on having your energy to uphold it. So that's why I think they, either consciously or unconsciously, I think it's a system that's taken, the energy of the system has just become so powerful that it sort of takes on its own leadership. But I don't know whether it's conscious or unconscious, but I do know that it does not want us to be connected to anything other than it.
Yeah. Now, what about, and this opens up a whole can of worms in probably another podcast, but what about transhumanism and how we're merging with technology? Like, it's inevitable. It's happening. It's speeding up every day. Cell phones, but we look at technology and we're using it to our advantages. Me and you were able to talk. We got thousands of people listening to this all over the world. There's good uses for technology. There was a time where I was kind of getting mad at technology and because it's mimicking spiritual technology as well. Like we're supposedly all connected with all these people, but we're so disconnected spiritually at the same time. We can't stop it though. So to be on this revolution, like we need to return back to nature and turn it all off. Like there's people who are trying to make those stands as well. But there should be a healthy balance. Would you agree that there would be a balance of nature and technology, and there's a way to balance it all together versus being, anti this or anti that?
Yeah, I think it's, like anything, it's how we use it. I mean, carrots are good for you, but if you only ate carrots, you'd probably turn orange or whatever. And what I think is dangerous is the small ways that we use technology, especially kids and mobile phones, these little actions of getting a reaction from a text, getting a this, getting a that. It feeds this part of us that is looking for meaning, that is looking for connection, but in a way that is not the real connection that's going to feed our soul. Yeah. And so I think it's really important to know how we're using technology and to discipline ourselves and to teach kids other things, so that, because I think that's where the frightening thing is where people don't let go of their phone. It's like they cannot. I sat in a museum in London, and it was a natural history museum, and I thought people would come up the stairs. I was sitting at the top of the stairs near a exhibition part of it, and people would come up, they'd see something that took their interest, but instead of walking over to it to look at it, they put their phone in front of it. So they didn't actually look at it, they took a photo of it. So it's like they don't even see things anymore. They just put it on their phone. Yeah. And I think that's where, we have to really think and spend as much time in nature as we spend in technology. It has to be balanced. Yeah. But that's definitely very hard because technology is addictive. Yeah.
That's interesting you say that because like the studies show that when we take that picture of whatever it is that we're like creating these synapses in our brain that just say, I don't need to remember this. Yeah. Because I have it on the phone.
And I don't even need to look at it. My phone's looked at it for me. Mm-hmm. So they don't even, before we would look at something that interested us and we'd stay there for a moment and really look at it. Why does it interest us? What am I seeing? But instead they put the phone and they think that's enough. So it's in the phone, but they haven't looked at it and they haven't remembered it.
It's scary because the next generation, my daughter, she's 15, they came up knowing this. And it's gotten worse since she was a kid, right? But their brain is already accustomed to that. And I know that's their normal. Like the way the brain works, like the dopamine being released, or you got to text, or you got to like, or you got to retweet. I know it because it's happened to me as well. Because I feel it, and I wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's new for me, but for them it's like from birth. So the balance or getting back in nature or putting the phone down, like I feel the sense of panic of getting in my car and driving without my phone. My brain goes to, what if I get a flat? No one's going to stop and help me. I need my phone to call someone. I was without a phone for 2 weeks. It felt really good. It felt good. There was a fear there, but eventually it felt good. It's strange.
Yeah, there's a liberation. When I haven't got my phone, there's a sort of freedom. But I have noticed that, if I'm somewhere and there's no internet, I feel like I'm disconnected.
Yeah.
But in fact, we're having this conversation about connecting with plants and nature, and that's supposed to be esoteric. And on the other hand, we're all connected to this sort of crazy internet world of high tech. But, when I want to find information on the internet, you have to really look for it. Most of the time you put something into Google and a load of shit comes up. You have to really, if you want the information that you really want, you have to know how to use it and go deep and find it. So even that, we're connected to what? A load of rubbish?
Now, and it just, again, opens up so much, like everything, like there's like agendas behind it on how to think, which articles we're going to let you find. No, you're not going to find this episode. We're going to show you this other episode by one of our people who's paid us a lot of money to be here, whether it's ad space or whatever. But just the algorithms of suppressing, even under some of these videos, you have the Wikipedia. Okay, they're talking about plant spirits, but here's a Wikipedia fact that says that plants don't have, like, there's a lot of that weird stuff going on, trying to tell people how to think. And even so, with the internet being a free market or something, it's not anymore. It started out as that. We've been able to kind of tap in and organically grow because of people looking for whatever they want. You type it in Google, hey, here I am. But now it's become muddy. The waters are muddy now because of technology, because of the big corporate industries who are playing a part of this now, deleting people, shutting down accounts because they have a narrative that goes against what they believe. Very interesting trying to navigate through these waters, and I think that now more than ever, this interview needs to be heard, to be had, and I think that returning to nature now again is sexy now. It is growing. People are doing it. They're asking. They don't know what else to do. And it is that resurgence of, the Bible says, seek ye out the ancient path. And there, go back to that. It says, and there you will find rest for your soul. To go back to the ancient ways, the indigenous ways, to the woods, to the mountains, to the shamans, to the plant journeys, and just kind of reset, refresh, and renew through nature. And we have to be balanced. And I don't even think we could balance. So even though I say balance, go into nature more, because it's not even going to offset what we've learned, and like trying to like uncondition ourselves and unlearn a lot of this stuff that by default I didn't, it's just there. But it can, we have to combat it, and we have to be vigilant, I believe, and we have to continue to get this information out.
And I want to just say something to end with in terms of internet and plant communication. So, I noticed just this week that I was looking up something online, and then everything that I went on Google, that thing came onto the page and as an advert. And I just thought, this is crazy. But what I want to say is, when plant communication and the natural world has a magic to it, so it works in a similar way. So if I open a door to the soul of a plant, and to communicating with a plant, and to connecting with nature, I often see these coincidences and the ways plants come in and will do the same thing in a way. Instead of it being a pair of shoes that come up as an advert, something will happen and the plant will make itself known. Like you said, you were called. And so plants work in the same way as internet. But it's a wholesome way. It's a natural way. Yeah. It's our birthright. It's our natural way of being. And what we need to do is say, hey, I need to be more vigilant and more discerning in terms of what I'm doing on my computer or on my phone. But I need to open up in the same way as I'm open to that, to the plant world, and to see how that internet connection with the natural world and with our ancestors is coming through. Which one am I going to listen to most? Yeah. That's the question we have to ask.
Yeah, I think consciousness works in the same way. It's a part of consciousness, and our consciousness is connected with the plants. Our consciousness is connected with the universal brain, the global web, the real web, that we are all literally connected. We are all expressions of one another. And we can feel, we know when people are going through stuff. We can feel it down in our gut. Our hearts may even hurt when someone else loses a loved one that we didn't even know, just because they're grieving. And there's so many deep, intricate ways that we're connected. And even it shows itself through synchronicity of God, the universe, of numbers repeating over. You say something, and then there it is everywhere, right? Again, with the ads, the weird thing is that they're copying consciousness. They're copying the way that consciousness works with the global web, taking it from the global brain. Synchronicities, we say something. The universe works in such a way that when you are looking for something, you'll find it. And I think these people, I think they know it. So they're kind of copying consciousness. So, hey, you looked for that ad. There's pros and cons. Like, if someone is spending ad revenue and they want to sell a product, you're the one who looked it up. I would rather see ads for something that I want than be sold something that I didn't want. Like right now, I two ads in particular. I looked up a T-shirt from a band, and I looked up garden gnomes. I want some more garden gnomes to put outside of my little garden, and I'm seeing these little gnomes every time I turn my phone on, and I'm showing my wife. I was like, Walmart really wants me to buy this. So it's not like, we created that, but then we're not even going to get into the whole aspect of the things that they're able to sell us that we didn't want. That's the whole thing. But at least I looked that up, and it's things that I was interested in. So go ahead and plug your website. You have so much, everything that we talked about and more on your website. Your courses are amazing and full of info. Plug your website and where people can check out more about what you have and bring to the table. Okay,
thank you. So my main website is AromaGnosis.com, AromaGnosis.com. And that's my school. And on that school, we have a plant communication class, and we have a really good class on plants and ancestors, ancestral healing, and a class on aromatherapy and medicine of the soul. So there are other classes as well, but those are the main classes. And then my second website is cathysattars.com. And that website is where we sell flower essences, which are subtle vibrational plant medicines, and aromatherapy essential oils that we have chosen very specifically. So there aren't that many on there because there's a load of shit out there, and we only want the high vibrational essential oils that are really going to help work with the psyche. So those are my two sites. And I have a Facebook page, Cathy Skipper, a Facebook page, AromaGnosis, and the same on Instagram. So I'm just really happy that we had this conversation because I didn't know what it was going to be, and it turned out to have been a good connection.
Heck yeah. Awesome. I'm reading the comments here on YouTube and Facebook, and everybody's just like so encouraged and have something to say. I wish I could have opened up the phone lines. I was trying to get the technology down. There's a lot of people who want to call in, but we'll definitely have that open again for the next time that that you come on. And I really enjoyed it as well. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, my husband, who's a holistic psychiatrist who's worked a lot with psychedelics, you could just send us an email and you could interview him because he has a very scientific approach to all this and might be an interesting conversation. For sure. I will do that. Thank you so much, Cathy. I really appreciate it. Have a good one. Thank you. Yeah, lots of love. Bye. All right, God bless. Bye-bye. Ciao. Cathy Skipper. Wow, the plants. Indigenous medicine. It's called medicine for a reason. Again, when we think about plant medicines, and people are scared, like that they'll abuse it or they take too much of it. I look at psilocybin. Like if you just take she mentioned microdosing. Microdosing, Google that, has so many benefits of just waking up and taking, just putting it in your system. Microdose is different for everybody, but maybe just a cap, maybe just a stem, whatever it is, just so that it's integrated within your system, and just it allows you to feel connected
to everything and everyone. It helps you to feel more peaceful, be more intuitive, be more at ease. And it's just the benefits for me are out of this world. Neurogenesis, fixing the brain, regrowing brain cells, as they said. Neurogenesis, looking at the benefits of a psilocybin encounter, even on a small experience. Now, if you eat a big handful, if you eat, 2 grams, it's going to be a little bit more intense. You're going to really feel it. If you do 5 grams, you're probably going to be shot into outer space. But the same is to be said when someone is sick. What do you do when you're sick? You ingest something. You put something in your body. Again, going back to some of the medicines, such as, I got some bear root back here, which is a medicine. You chew on the root, right? Looking at Tylenol and Advil, Robitussin. When you get sick, you go immediately to these things. And if you take just enough, you're good. Take a little bit too much NyQuil. Watch what happens. You were talking about hallucinating and woozy and getting drunk. I know people who used to drink mouthwash to get drunk. So all of these things that can be used and are here, these medicines, they can be abused. If you do too much, if you do it too often, Robitussin, even, we used to get Robitussin gel tabs as teenagers. And if you had a headache, you eat 1 or 2 and you're good. We used to eat the whole pack and we would get messed up. It would just be intense. There's so much over-the-counter stuff that you can get and take, and it would send you into some weird psychotic high. We used to take no-dose. This was over-the-counter pills. There were these had little plus signs on them. They're for truckers. They're caffeine pills. And for truckers who were having problems staying awake behind the wheel. And we would eat 5, 6, 7, 8. We eat a whole bunch of them. No-dose. And when someone would touch you on the top of your head, you would feel these ripples go all down your body because we ate too much. We abused them. This was somewhat of a medicine for a trucker needing to stay awake, just on extra caffeine. But you take too much, your body's tingling, you're in this weird space. Same thing, if you take too much of any medicine, you can die. And then looking at the genetic makeup, again, going back to the bear root, looking at Tylenol. If you look it up, Tylenol and what's in it, there's the ingredients are roots. There's a certain root. I don't know which root it is. Let me see. There's certain roots and barks that are in these drugs that are just found in nature. So Big Pharma is taking these God-given plants and things and roots and barks and all of this stuff, and they're changing the genetic makeup. Though it's not like they're just taking it and giving it to you in pill form. Now your headache's gone, but if you take too much, you're going to have liver failure. Your headache's gone, but you have bowel problems. Your headache's gone, but you can't operate heavy machinery. Right? There's all of these weird side effects. And again, they're kind of a joke now, laying in bed at night, watching television, and you hear about these different pills to cure restless legs syndrome. Yeah, you can keep your legs still, but some of the side effects of some of this stuff is suicidal thoughts. You're better off keeping that headache. Or just going again. There's so much stuff here. Bear root, or what's called the Osha root. Right here, I have some right here. Protection, spiritual and physical. You can burn them. We used to just choke on it. Chew on it. Chew on bear root. And if you had a headache, it's got kind of a minty flavor as well. I mean, there's so much stuff that's already out there that Big Pharma is taking and branding, and And they're like all the strong ones, like all the good ones, for the most part, they're making it illegal. It's illegal to have psilocybin mushrooms. So even if you would listen to a podcast like this and you would want to do it, you're going to have to jump through some hoops. You're going to have to do something illegal to get this medicine. Again, we're talking about kratom. Helping people. It's like a kind of a natural muscle relaxer, and I don't know if I'd call it a muscle relaxer, but it if you have aches in your body, it helps. So helping people come off of opiate addiction, kratom, but now within the last 3 years, it's become illegal. You used to can go to the gas station here. The funny thing is, the state laws too, because the next state over you can. So my friends would drive a good 45 minutes to go get it and spend money in that other state to get it. And that's interesting. But they're making it illegal. We had one friend who had a head shop who was making a lot of money. Come to find out, it was because they were selling kratom. They were selling so much kratom that it kept their shop in business. They sold other stuff, bongs and wall flags with hippie frogs on it, sitting on mushrooms, you know, that kind of head shop, incense and stuff. But once the FDA made kratom illegal in Alabama, they shut down. They actually seized their bank account. But once everything cleared, they shut down and they opened up just across the state line. So now all of that tax revenue and everything is going to this next state over. So it's Mississippi, it's legal. Alabama, illegal. Florida, legal. And we're just right here in the middle where it's illegal for us. And it's just so weird how, but you can go to the doctor and they'll give you some Vicodin, some Loratab, some footballs, you know, all of these different muscle relaxers that you're going to get addicted to. And if you try to come down, you try to come off of it, you're going to get hurt. It hurts to come down off of it. You become dope sick. I haven't experienced that, but I have some friends who have definitely struggled with that. And it's just so interesting. Like, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Like, God knows that everything about you and your genetic makeup and your anatomy, and then those plants and how we're connected to them or disconnected from them at this point, but taking them to heal your body. What is it? What was his name? The Hippocrates, that is how you say his name. Let thy food be thy medicine. When you get sick, what do? Do you put a balm on? Do you rub it on your skin? Maybe if it's some type of aromatherapy or some type of I love rubbing frankincense on my skin, actually. But you put something in your mouth. You ingest something. You eat it. Let thy food be thy medicine. The different things that we're eating and consuming, this stuff ain't even food, man. It has zero nutrients whatsoever. And we're eating it like it's food. We're like a well-oiled machine, fearfully and wonderfully made, how this machine works. And we're putting things in the gas tank that are not conducive with our well-being, with our mental stability. Eating all that. I'm telling you, man, change your diet. Anything. We are connected to nature, man. And I hope that this podcast lit something within you to get back out. Look, it's a perfect time to plug our nature retreat. We have a retreat coming up, and we got one in January. It's already booked up, but we got another one that we're booking for now in April. If you go to TruthSeekah.com, you can get all the information. If you would like to go out and do a nature retreat, we're going to be partaking in muscimol, which is Amanita muscaria. But it's not so much even about that. It's more about just returning to nature, getting out in the woods. We're going to be hiking, chanting, doing breath work, and just connecting with a bunch of like-minded people who are looking for a reset button. We're going to push the reset button. And for me, that's what these things do. They help you to find the reset button. kind of flush everything out, get a fresh start, you could do that. So if that's something that interests you and you like to get up with us, head on over to TruthSeekah.com, and on the front page, all the info will be there for ticket prices. We only have 6 more beds available for those of you who are wanting to go. It's a guys trip only. My wife is heading up the girls trip, but there won't be any mushrooms on that trip. I guess we could say that. But it's not so much about the mushrooms. This is make that known. It's more about connecting with nature and being with brothers and friends. And so it's not going to be something to do even a heroic dose anyway. So if you want to get up with some people, man, it's going to be there, but I don't want that to sell you on it, even though it probably already has. People are looking, man. And again, there's a resurgence, and I'll talk about that. I'll say this, and me and a couple brothers have been talking about going back out to the woods and just being a handful of us, right? And it was probably about 4 or 5 of us who were gonna go, and we've been talking, having a couple drinks here and there, and just like, hey, we need to go back out. Yeah, we do, and need to reset, get some things ready, and I it's something that I really respect. So I was like, hey guys, let's do it. We'll all put in on it, blah 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 blah. So I set it up. I set the event up. I said, look, here's what it's going to cost. $100 a slot at the time. I sent it to my friends who were saying that they wanted to go. But I added a couple extra slots because we could fit more people at this particular cabin. So I was like, look, here's the slots. Whoever wants to go ahead and book it, because we're going to fill these beds up. And if you don't want to go, this is something that I'm doing, and I'm just going to open it up to whoever wants to go with us. I opened it up and it sold out in less than 24 hours. And a lot of people were inboxing me still wanting to go, but all the beds were sold. I didn't think that would happen. I thought that I would have to beg people to go. I thought that I would have to beg my friends to go. The weird thing is I don't think any of them even booked it. I don't know why, but I don't know if they thought it was something they can go to for free and not have to pay, and I would pay for it all or something. I don't know, between them and God, but they didn't go. But all of these people from all over messaged me and said, hey, they went ahead. They didn't even message me. They bought their ticket. They said, look, I need this. I'm ready. Let's do it. And they bought their ticket. And within 24 hours, the whole thing was booked up, and more people were messaging me, emailing me. So I was like, man, this is something that we're going to have to do quarterly, and again, this is something that, is popular right now for a reason. Cathy's saying that these plants are calling to us. They're searching for us. They're beckoning us to return to source, to return to the ancient path. It ain't just in your Bible. The damn plants are calling to you. You just ain't listening. But if you get in these states of consciousness, I'm not even talking about doing magic mushrooms or tripping or whatever you want to call it. I'm talking about states of consciousness that you're aware. It doesn't have anything to do with that. You don't even again, light you some sage, man. Get you some copal resin. Get some incense, some really good incense, man. And that actually have which Him is a good brand. If you guys are looking for good incense, Him, copal resin. What is it? Palo Santos. Just the essence of the aroma and the connectivity that they come from the earth. They come from the same place you come from. You guys, you know each other. There's something in you that's connected. To return to it. And again, it just opens you up to different levels of consciousness, to be more in tune, to be more appreciative, that you don't have to, again, drink 6 beers to feel relaxed. You can get you a cup of chamomile tea, drink that stuff, and just sink and feel good. It's not illegal. It's still okay to drive, but you're just more in tune. You can relax. Chamomile tea, you can go to Walmart, you can get it off of different websites. You can find it and grow it and make it yourself. Chamomile tea. So much more. Start somewhere. Start with buying frankincense. This is hard. This is frankincense resin that I'm holding here. My wife got this for me a couple years ago. It's still got a whole bunch left. But what I'll do is I'll smell it. You can smell it, but it's hard. But as you rub it, as you begin to work it with your hands, it becomes soft again, and you can form it. And I will just put it on my, you know how people have like a nicotine patch? They put a little patch on with nicotine so they get a little bit of nicotine throughout the day. I make a patch out of this frankincense, and I work it in my hands, I work it in my fingers, and I get it to where it gets real sticky, and I'll just patch it on me somewhere so that it's going into my pores and getting into my bloodstream, and you can feel the healing properties from it. What healing properties? Look it up. It has so many. All of the stuff. There's a connectivity there, and there was a reason that this stuff was brought to baby Jesus by the Magi, by the stargazers at his birth. Adriana says, burn copal cones. They are great. Man, I love copal resin with meditation. Again, I put it in one of my songs. Y'all know that song, the song called Golden Teachers. Vibing on this copal and coping with my emotions. Grab the scrolls and I unfold it. This copal is just too potent. I remember writing that because I was burning some copal. I was getting smoked out. Like I was in another realm when that copal, I had to put it out. That jump was just too much for what I was doing. I said, grab the scrolls and I unfolded. This copal is just too potent. I had to put it out. But copal resin is what the Aztecs and the Aztecs and the Mayans used before ritual. Before ritual, they would use this before going into trance state, leaving their bodies, actually projecting. It's not a hallucinogen. You're not gonna like this. It was just really strong. So I inhaled some of it, you know. But I mean, there's just so much, and we're just touching the base of the surface. If you could just pick out anything from this episode, and I've done several more just like this, talking to experts in these fields. My friend Dandelion, Dan D.E. Lion, that was a great episode, talking about the different plants and the spirits and our connectivity to them and returning to that. Like, we can study this stuff and we can talk about it all day, but actually getting your ass out there and doing it, going out there in nature, that's on you. Do it. You won't regret it. Take your shoes off and go stand on the ground like a crazy person. Do it. It seems crazy, right? Who's that barefoot guy keeps going everywhere? On the bottom of your shoes, they have rubber insoles. You're not even touching the ground. You're supposed to be grounded with the earth's energy. It does wonders. You're carrying all this stress. Look, find you any of this stuff. Go somewhere where you can put your feet on the ground. I do rape. It's a tobacco and some other bark and some things like that that's used in Peru. But you blow it, and it helps me to purge, man, to get stuff out, like stuff that I'm holding on to. If you do it in passing, it's just whatever, it kind of burns, whatever. Oh, that was okay. But if you do that rape, any of this stuff, that you do it and you really sink into it, you really listen. You really just go into it, man. It's powerful teachers behind it. They're speaking all the time. We're just not listening. Again, so much of this stuff, what we were talking about, it goes back to God, and God's always speaking. We just ain't listening. You know, the plants are speaking. We ain't listening. When it came to UFOs, and I had to go there, the UFO thing for me was deep because I was having all of these encounters and seeing stuff in the night sky and the day sky. But the biggest revelation was like, look, this has been there the whole time. You're focused on things of this world. The Bible says to focus on the things from above. Like, these angels, these ships, these entities have been there the whole time, but we just been too preoccupied on our carnal senses and on the things of this world, that all I had to do was step out in nature and look up. My whole life, they've always been there watching over us. You know, they've been here since the beginning. Having a sighting, having any of these encounters, it does something within you. It releases creativity. It releases awe. It releases wonder. It inspires you that maybe God is real. Maybe there's more to this finite experience. Maybe there is some deep levels and depths within me and out there. Maybe I'm connected. Maybe I have to even go within to communicate with the God who they say is out there, or the angels, or whatever you think that they are. But for me, again, it's like, it's always been here. You've just been too preoccupied with yourself, with your ideas, with your problems, with your whatever, that you just don't have the time to look up, to get into nature. I don't think you have time not to. I don't think you have time not to look up. You got to. I got friends now that they're so connected with the angelic because of, they're not even, I don't even like calling them UFOs anymore. The chariots of the Most High. They are connected with the chariots of God, that they can go out on, and almost every day. And I'm not like this anymore, but some of my friends go out every day and they're prompted when to look up, and they see the chariots of God, chariots of fire. They see him every day. They're just reminded. It's a friendly reminder. It sparks something within you. You know, these spiritual encounters, going back to, have you seen a ghost? Have you seen Bigfoot? Have you seen whatever this kind of paranormal or spiritual or supernatural stuff is? It ignites something within you. Maybe it just ignites you to seek, to ask the bigger questions, whatever it is. But it ignites something. My music is just like the embodiment of that, this artistic expression of these encounters, that people, by simply listening to the music, are engaging in unlocking encounters within their own psyche, because they're believing for it. They're open to it now. Synchronicity. I mean, you find out the way consciousness is working, and the fact that you begin to believe things and expect it, and then you begin to see it. I can't not talk about this stuff, guys. I can't. I've tried not to. I've tried to like water it down and just, focus on, going to church and stuff. I just can't, man. I cannot. It's too deep. It's too deep. Man, so deep. Shout out to everybody holding us down in the chat right now. Facebook, YouTube, DLive, Periscope, Twitch, all those places. Again, the phone line's kind of messed up on me. I don't know why, but we just got a dedicated number and a new phone service that we're going to be using. But for some reason, I don't know, it messed up. I don't know, it just wouldn't connect before. But I'm gonna work on it, and hopefully we'll have it ready by the next podcast, because I've seen a bunch of people who are already calling and listening on the line, but for some reason it wouldn't connect. But we'll get that taken care of, because I think that taking callers really just added a whole new aspect to the show again, and even that lit something within me of like how we first got started. That's all I used to do, was take callers back in the day, and we had a really good episode, two past episodes really, where we opened up the phone lines and people were able to call in and kind of share, and I thought it was so beautiful to hear what other people thought, and they shared with me, and I was able to research some stuff and some names, and it was just cool. And we got to get back to it. So I'm going to get on the phone lines, check that out, see what's up with that. Just going to the comment section here. Tamu says, thank you for sharing the truth. Thank you for doing what you do, my friend. And I want to talk to you soon on the podcast too. So Adriana says, yes, feet on the ground, invite our children to do some rituals, walking, playing music, burn incense. Routine becomes a ritual when intention is placed upon it. It becomes sacred for sure. Even lighting candles in the evening takes on significance when we say thanks and give gratitude. Yep. It's good. Yeah, being intentional. Again, you're talking about these rituals that we're doing, but being intentional with it. I mean, when you talking about nature, I'm in nature all the time. I work out in nature. There's no connectivity. Well, you got to listen. You got to stop. You got to smell the roses. You got to talk to the flowers. Try it. Even if it's under your breath. Try it. Ask it to speak back. Are you speaking? Let me hear your voice. It's some deep stuff, man. It's crazy. But our ancestors knew it, and it's calling back. It's calling to you. God uses all this stuff. The supreme power that is behind everything. It created the plants. They didn't, like, there was an intelligence that encoded its DNA and created it. And so take it up with that. And it's all connected, pointing back to him, pointing back to it. We're talking about this stuff and these medicines, and well, I don't think that these medicines were here for us, and blah, 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 blah. The Bible says that every good and perfect gift comes from above. Every good and perfect gift comes from above. That scripture, my good friend Brandon, who's in chat, he was asking me, I think he said his aunt was really religious and wanted to know about the magic mushrooms, and can I give her any verses on it or anything like that? And I was like, well, not really. The only verse I think you need, again, is that every good and perfect gift comes from above. And if it's helping you, then it's good. God is good. It's helping you, right? It's healing you. People are overcoming addictions through the use of some of these hallucinogens, medicines, sacraments. They're overcoming addictions. They're feeling more connected with God, with their ancestors, with their family, with their self. They're feeling more comfortable within their own body as they return to nature. Return to your essence through inward reflection. I mean, all of this stuff is just sprinkled throughout my music. Every good and perfect gift comes from above. And if you have psilocybin mushrooms that are curing depression, I'm sorry, that's good. Well, the religious mind would say, well, that was the devil. There's this weird, I was just contemplating this earlier, I guess I'll share it. This weird church thing. And I'm introducing people who don't know, but those of you who have, spent any time in church culture, you know about this kind of stuff. But there's this weird thing where, like, it can only be healed. You can only be healed in Jesus' name. Like, if you go to church and get healed, then it's legit. If they pray for you and they pray in Jesus' name and you're healed, then it's legit. If we were talking about how, like, psilocybin healed me of depression, it gave me a purpose again, and things like that. There was healing that was done. Then it wasn't a real healing. It's only temporal and it won't last, because it wasn't Jesus that did it. It was actually the devil who did it. And we're talking about plant medicines. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's just go to a holy man, a Hindu holy man, lays his hands on you, says a blessing over you, aligns your chakras and moves energy, Reiki, boom, you're healed. You feel good. There's an alignment. You're thankful, So the Christian would say, well, that wasn't a true healing because it wasn't done in Jesus' name. They say the devil healed you. They say the devil healed you. I've never seen the devil heal anybody. The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But you're saying the devil healed you. It doesn't make any sense. Again, going back to demonology, like Jesus checked them on that. Jesus was healing people, and they said, oh, the only reason you're healing people because you're in cahoots with the devil. And so the devil healed you. I mean, it's the same argument. Jesus is like, no, Satan cannot cast out Satan. This person was sick. Now they're not. End of story. I don't care how you get it. I don't care how you find it. Forgiveness, healing. If you're in a church, if you're in in the wilderness, if you're on psilocybin, ayahuasca, like if you're a Muslim, it does, like if you're finding healing. I used to get mad. I used to watch this movie called Don't Be a Menace. No, I'm sorry. I watched that one too. Menace to Society. And I used to watch old gangster like movies from the hood, Boys to the Hood, Menace to Society, Higher Learning, like all these mobsters and gangster movies and stuff as a kid. And there was something that always threw me off, because there was this one guy who got his life together, and he was always preaching to the guys, but he was Muslim. He's always, man, Islam, Allah. And he was always talking about Allah and this kind of stuff. And there was a line in the movie that always sat weird with me, but now I'm coming to terms with it. but it was the guy named Sharif. And so Sharif is always telling him about God and Allah and get your stuff together and all this kind of. And they were talking to Sharif's dad. They're like, man, why Sharif on all that, good guy Muslim stuff and always trying to, blah, blah, blah. He said, well, look, if Allah can make him a better man than Jesus can, then I'm all for it. And I knew, like, for me, it was like, oh, hold on, you're trying to equate Islam with Christianity or Islam with Jesus. And for some, just because how I was raised and my experiences and my encounters and my beliefs and what I was told, like, that didn't go together. But now I'm looking at it, man. Healing is not a respecter of persons. Forgiveness is not a respecter of persons. God is not a respecter of persons. And if God can use a donkey, if God can use these broken prophets, King David was a murderer, Moses had a stuttering problem. Like, all of these people were like these broken people that God used to do mighty feats in the earth, to bring forth forgiveness and freedom for their people, to come to set the captives free. Like, God can use anybody, anyone. Look at the people that Jesus called. It was almost like God goes out of the way to find the ones who aren't qualified to use. And then in our mind, in our religious thinking, we're like, okay, those people aren't qualified. God can't use them. They're Muslim. They're not Christian. And like, we have this weird dichotomy. And that's exactly where God is in that dichotomy. Oh, just because you said that I can't, I'm going to. And it's just, everything is a portal. Everything is a conduit for the mercy and love of God. Again, I point at Billy Graham. Billy Graham's believed this at the end of his life. I think he's a great example. That the healing is not prejudice. God is not a respecter of persons. And just when you think you have God figured out, just when you think you have it all figured out, your paradigm, your box, your mind is blown. Just when you think you have spirituality, all of it figured out, your mind is blown. There's new levels. So if you feel like you're stagnant, if you're just in a place where you need a refreshing, a renewal, it's on you. Ask for it. You have not because you ask not. My people perish for a lack of knowledge. Not that the knowledge wasn't there, but that they just didn't care anymore. The knowledge is there. If anybody at this point, again, in some of the Christian circles I run in, and they scoff and they laugh at the mushroom thing or the alien thing. But for the mushroom thing, if you don't know the research by now, it's your fault. You're behind. You're the silly one, because it's out there. The research is out there. I just shared an article the other day with Dr. Oz, speaking highly about the advancements that we're making with psilocybin mushrooms in the medical community, and now how it's amazing that there's a couple of different states that are fighting to decriminalize it. And they asked Dr. Oz about this, and he was like, man, this is huge. This is huge. Now we're able to do these studies, and I'm telling you, man, if you are scoffing, if you think this is demonic, which that's, if you're trained to think that, that's going to be the first thing that comes. It's okay. But look it up. All I want you to do is type in magic mushrooms and depression and watch all of the articles that are coming from all of these major medical websites, these major colleges, and all of these placebo-done experiments and studies that are being done. And if you don't get that, then you are the problem. You haven't done the research. That's all you have to do is look it up. We're not even talking about the spiritual implications. I'm just talking about the physical, the emotional healing that comes along with it. And that's awesome. That's awesome. It's amazing. We don't have nothing to prove. The proof is in the pudding. You just got to do the research. Google it. Every good and perfect gift comes from above. Comes down from the Father of lights. You start seeing that all these things are connected. It's good stuff. With that, I'm going to say peace and shalom, man. Thank you guys for hanging out. Man, again, like, I don't know what's going on with this podcast. I really don't. I'm just hanging out, having a good time, talking to some really cool people. And the numbers have quadrupled. Like last week, they doubled. This week, they quadrupled. The amount of listeners that we're getting on the podcasting apps. There's more engagement on YouTube, more engagement on Facebook, all these other. I don't know why. I don't know if it's algorithms. I don't know if it's someone, a big name person shares it. I mean, sometimes that's what it takes. You interview somebody and then they share it out. You know, I don't know. It's hard to find out what's working and keep hitting that, right? But my numbers are freaking me out. Shalom to all of the new listeners that we have. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm really not doing anything different. It just, I guess it comes in waves. I don't know, but the numbers have quadrupled. Yesterday was the highest day that I've ever had, doing this over 3 years. And yesterday was the highest day ever. And I know as I keep going, it's going to keep going up, but welcome to all the new listeners again. Take a glance at our back archives. There's about almost 270 shows at this point. Make sure that you go and check out some of the new episodes that or some of the past episodes that we have. Also, too, while he's in chat, shout out to the Gothic Mystic. If you're listening to this on a podcasting app, you probably have heard me mention him with some ads there. He supports the podcast, and we have ad slots available. And if you would like to purchase ad slots, go to truthseekah.com/advertise. And if you have a product, if you have a book, if you have a service, or if you would like to come on as a guest or whatever it is, go there, check out the information. There's ad slots available, and check out his website. Hopefully it's up now. I know there was a bunch of traffic sent your way yesterday, Joshua, and that could have been it. The site was down. But thegothicmystic.com, if you're looking into dream interpretation, symbolism, he's one of the best ones out there doing it with his research, and now he's got a good portal through his website, bringing that stuff to the table. I've seen him in my living room interpret dreams, and it's so funny because the guy's giving the dream and he's just breaking it down. The funny thing is I think there's a spirit behind it, like someone who is good at interpreting dreams, because I was able to, like, in my head, I was like, okay, that's what that is. That's what that. And then so Joshua, the Gothic Mystic, was breaking it down, everything that I was thinking as the guy was sharing the dreams. You can learn how to do it, and Joshua teaches that through private sessions and some of the blogs and things that he's got going on. So he's a really good friend of mine. Make sure you guys go over there and check it out, thegothicmystic.com. He says he got the website figured out. He was freaking out, and trust me, man, when the website goes down, it will freak you out. I remember I thought I deleted my website. I have a really good website. It's old. It's got site authority. It gets the first result for a lot of different names for the people that I've interviewed, and I thought I deleted it. I freaked out. Love Vibe says, don't freak out. Tech does that on purpose. Man, good stuff. So with that being said, I'm going to say peace and shalom, man. If you guys want to support the podcast and support the show, we're definitely taking new steps in new directions for hosting and talking about starting a podcast network. If you have a podcast that you want to get started, you're looking for a network, I'm taking steps in that direction to start a podcast network into the esoteric. So if that's what you want to do and bring that to the table, get with me. We'll see about getting you featured on what we're doing and share it out to the audience as well. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Check out what we got. Thursday night, School of the Mystics. It's our hangout. We do group ascensions. We do just simply group hangouts. We throw ideas out there and bounce off of one another. Like-minded people. Our Discord community is popping. All of those links are in the descriptions. Check it out. My new book. So much stuff. Meditations. Music. So much stuff. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. With that, I'm going to say peace and shalom. So thank you guys for hanging out. It means the world. We're going to do it again very soon. Peace, peace.
Have a book, product, or service you'd like to promote? Look no further. Ad slots and commercials are now available for you to get the word out about what you do on the TruthSeekah Podcast.
Give you what you need.
Engage the spiritual community and get yourself instantly in front of thousands of listeners who explore the spiritual, paranormal, supernatural, religious, and metaphysical realms. Have your commercial inserted into our entire archive of episodes. That includes the one with Jordan Maxwell, James Gilliland, Dr. Michael Heiser, and that weird one with Busy Bone from Bone Thugs and Harmony. Stop sleeping on yourself. Know your worth. Let's get the word out today about what you have to offer. Head on over to TruthSeekah.com and click on Advertise for more info.
Your will so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine. Your so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah Podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.